On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're visiting pattern-filled homes full of color. First, we'll head to a vibrant home where a 16-year-old new build has been transformed into a colorful oasis filled with antiques, busts, and animal statues. Then, we'll explore a maximalist home in Charleston, South Carolina, with bold colors, artwork, and a mix of high-end and DIY decor. Last, we'll visit a cozy, opulent Brooklyn apartment packed with colorful decor, Carrie Bradshaw-inspired pieces, and exotic collectibles from travels. Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Aran. Welcome to my home in North Carolina. I can't wait to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Aran Bethay. I am owner of Dressing Rooms Interior Studio, and you're in my home in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've been living in this house for 16 years. It's a new build, and I live here with my husband and my dog, Minnie. We moved here from Boston, Massachusetts 16 years ago when we had this home built. So the style of our home is what I would call the builder's version of a craftsman style. Inside it's 3,100 square feet. We have 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and we have what we use as a lounge, and which used to be my home office. And then we have a TV room where we watch movies because I really love movies. I'm a big Marvel fan. So Dressing Rooms Interiors is my vintage store. I sell vintage lighting, art, and decor. I started originally online with an Etsy shop and $300, and went to the largest yard sale and kind of just bought things that I thought were popular. I hadn't curated my style at that point, and so then as I started to sell, as I started to shop in antique stores and estate sales, I started to curate my eye. So the more you shop in those stores and flea markets, the better your eye gets. And so I started developing a style. And so I started purchasing pieces that I loved, just in case I had to keep them, if they didn't sell, I can incorporate them into my home. And so over the years, I sold on different sites before opening my own store, and then ultimately actually closed that store last year because I was selling more online. And so now I'm back full circle to back selling online. So it's been a wonderful journey. I've actually added my own line of lampshades, so those are coming out any moment. I'm waiting for the arrival of them, and so I'm really excited about that. So we've decorated the house in not really a style, but it's pieces that I've collected over the years, things that I've inherited from my grandmother and my mother, and so it's really a mix of vintage and new. Welcome to my entryway. One of the first pieces you'll notice in my entryway is this vintage hutch. It hides, or shall I say, displays my magazine collection. I love magazines. They give me tons of inspiration, and I have some vintage ones in here from the 1960s, and I also have some current ones. I would love to say that they're in order of date, but some are and some aren't. Also peppered in here are pieces I inherited from my grandmother and my mom that I really didn't have space for, so it makes a great display for those pieces as well. This piece used to live in my office, but now it lives here. And so I do actually use these magazines. I pull them out, I sit in my office, and I go through them. One of the things that I do learn every time I do that exercise is that nothing is new, right? Everything has been done before, and it's just good to see how people used to do it back in the 60s and the 70s. In front of the hutch, I have this Maitland Smith mirror. It's a vintage piece. There's a lot of like square lines going on here. I have this mirror above that's also square, and so this round element breaks up all the square elements going on here. So right when you come into my entryway is this tiger rug. It's actually had it custom sized for the space, and it's commercial grade, so doesn't matter what gets spilled on here. I've actually spilled paint on here, and it comes up really easily. So it also brings in all of like the animal motifs that I have going on in my home, and actually, you know, I kind of dress sort of like I design. Because of my time in New England, living in Boston, I love molding. So we have great picture molding. That was one of the things I added to the home was crown molding. We have double crown, and we also have picture molding below and, you know, throughout the space. So I love heavy moldings. I love color, particularly red, but this is a orangey red. It's called Salsa by Benjamin Moore, and I actually found it on a advertising kind of card for Benjamin Moore, and I wanted to use it in my space. And you'll see this color in another room that I used it in, and so I thought it'd be fun to pull this color from, it's in my powder room, it's also in the painting over my fireplace, and it's in draperies, and it's in art. So I've used this as kind of like a pull through in all of my spaces, and so I have this door painted and also my garage door painted the same color. So behind the door, I have a gong. It's a vintage gong that I hung back here. It's just a fun element. I mean, you can announce somebody's coming and hit the gong, but it's just a fun element that I thought would be appropriate behind the door. So we have a small entryway here, and so I have been able to use color and pattern to kind of give you a sense of what you're going to expect as you move through our home. So we have these drapery panels that were actually, I used those in a show house that I did, and they happened to actually work in the home. So that wasn't intentional. I just kind of love this colorway, and so I was able to use those here. And then these chairs are a part of some chairs that are in my home office, and so I was able to bring the pattern from the drapery again in the chairs and kind of give this space a punch, so to speak. Also in the entryway, there's not a lot of storage in the house, so I collect brass planters, and so I use the top of the hutch as a display for those. And so I use these. So I pull them down. I put ferns in them. I put different, flowering plants in them. I have a couple of vases that I use. So I use them, I put them back. So this is kind of working storage. I love using color and pattern in my home, and actually that's the first thing I selected when designing the home is the paint colors. So I wanted to figure out how the house would feel, and so that's kind of where I start with all my design projects, is how do I want to feel in the space. And so the first thing I always select is the paint color, and then I build from there. It's been a really slow process of designing the home. I don't kind of just pull out a magazine or a Pinterest board or anything and just kind of start plugging things in. I like to discover things and find things that work, find pieces that I love, find things when I'm traveling. So it's been literally 16 years of designing the home. So I would consider myself a soulful maximalist. I'm a really ruthless editor, because there's like a fine line for me between it feeling like a store and feeling layered. And so I really try to restrain myself from adding things. So if I'm adding, I'm subtracting. I do move things around all the time because my eye needs to see something new and different. I love fresh flowers, so there's always fresh flowers in the house. But yeah, I would say I am a maximalist. I love the layers of color and pattern and texture. And so, yes. So now I'd love to show you my home office. It is right off the entryway. Let's take a look. The first thing you'll notice is color, right? I told you I love color. And so the first thing I picked in here was the wall color. And it's Frambrose by Sharon Williams. I use all brands of paint. If I love the color, I will use the paint. And so what I wanted to do here is create an office that didn't really feel like an office. And so I wanted to be surrounded by inspiration, be surrounded by art. And so I have a shield here, which I jokingly call myself a huntress because I'm always on the hunt for vintage finds. And so that's here. I have some of my awards displayed here, some coffee table books that have been signed. And again, the drapery repeats itself here. So like I said, I love original art and vintage art, and this is a vintage piece. I can't remember the year of this one, but I saw this piece. I was on Instagram following the Makerista, and she was in an auction house in, I can't remember what state, Kansas. And she was doing kind of like a tour of what was going to be in the auction. And so this piece, not this very piece, but let's just say this piece showed up, and I was like, oh my God, because like I said, I was planning this space and I needed art, and I know I wanted a big piece that was going to go across these moldings, and I didn't know what it was going to be, and I wanted it to find me. I like things to find me. And so I saw that piece and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be perfect. I didn't know what I was going to put here, and I love the tension of the black and white against all these other patterns. Plus I love animals. And so fast forward, the auction happened. I totally forgot about the date because she was doing a preview. And maybe 3 weeks later, this piece showed up in a consignment shop here in Charlotte. And it was not the same. I actually I was interviewed by the Kansas City auction house, and they asked me, they were like, did you get that piece from us? And I said, no, it actually showed up here in Charlotte. So it's kind of serendipitous. I was supposed to have it. I was supposed to see it, and I was supposed to have it. So that's the story of that piece. So this space was originally supposed to be my dining room, but I needed a home office. And I've always imagined a banquette here. And so this banquette from Ballard Design was the perfect scale for this area. And I paired it with, this is my grandmother's table. And I had it, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I had it in storage for about a year. It was in bad condition. And then I cleaned it and found this fabric, didn't have it, found the fabric, and it all kind of came together. Like I said, I like to find things or have things find me, and everything just kind of fell together for this space. So when I closed my shop, I had to incorporate some of the things from my shop office into my home office. And so one of the things is this bulletin board, which I keep all thank you notes. So if you've ever sent me a thank you note, it is here. I love them. I appreciate them. And so most of these are thank yous or congratulations or some sorts. And I have it mixed in with some inspiration pieces as well. So the favorite thing about my home, well, I'll say my favorite room is my home office. So my home office was actually a gift to myself. It's the only room that I actually planned for. So all the other spaces in the house kind of organically came together. This room I actually picked out paint color. This is the, banquette I'm using. This is the fabric. So it was actually a planned space, and I do love it. This credenza, I know I needed a storage piece in the space because hello, it's an office and I need to hide all the things. So this piece works really great. It's a Bernhardt piece. It's raffia. I love the color because it actually picks up the color of the banquette. and the chrome picks up the chrome from my grandmother's table, so it hides all matter of sins. And these are my grandmother's lamps. I was able to salvage those as well, and I had these custom shades made for them as well. The fabric I just found, like it was a scrap piece of fabric. I didn't know what I was going to do with the fabric, but I found it and I love it. And so it worked it just happened to work in the space. So I bought this painting locally here at Slate Interiors, and I believe it's from like I want to say either 1967 or 1972. I can't see the date, I can't remember, but it's in that moody time period that I love. And it just so happens that it works. Like, this wasn't planned, but it happened that it works in this space. And I have this folding screen to hide a cabinet back there. I have a metal fireproof cabinet that has like all my taxes, all my information. And so this screen does a great job of kind of hiding all of that. So this is a piece from Morocco that I got, and we watched the artist make it. And so it's basically, it was a way that they used to send messages to each other, like hidden messages. And then he puts it over a fire, and then the image appears. And so we watched him make these pieces. And so that was really cool. So I brought that back with me from there. And then I have these pieces from my grandmother. This is also from my grandmother, this vase. And, you know, I have my business cards, and then I have sort of current magazines that I'm looking at as well. In this curio, we have pieces from my shop. So these are some of the breakables that I kind of have in my office. Also, some of the things that I love to look at, and some pieces that I got recently in Morocco that I have not shared yet. So there's a mix of those in here. And then above, that's a piece from my grandmother. This piece used to hang over my checkout stand at my shop. And these are some awards that I've gotten over the years. And so this right here is a dim sum cart. And I always thought it would be fun. I always imagine it as a office caddy, which is what I'm using it for. So here I was like, oh, you can put envelopes here, you know, pens and, you know, staplers here, and then office supplies here, and it had a drawer for paper. And it's also portable, so you can move it around. So I really love this as kind of a modern office caddy. I have a blue ceiling because the sky's always blue, and there's always, you know, an upside to things. And so I like to have the ceiling blue. So this piece it's an original piece by an artist named Erica Michelle. She's a local artist. And the interesting story behind it is that she came into my shop and she kept running and bumping into this glass table, a coffee table I had. And she apologized and then explained to me that she had gone blind, and that she started painting as therapy. And so I asked her to see, I said, well, can you show me some of your art? And so she showed me some pieces, and I was blown away. And she had never shown anyone her art before. And I told her, we have to do a show for you. And so I did a show for her at the shop, and we sold out her first 2 collections. And this is part of her second collection. And now she sells on all sorts of sites and her website, and we've become friends. The inspiration behind this room was I was featured in Essence magazine a number of years ago, and like 2021. And this was the gift to myself to redo my office. Now I've had like 5 different variations of this room, and it's always kind of been kind of makeshift. And so this time I wanted to really put some time and attention into the space, and some real thought behind it. And this is kind of what I came up with. So what I like to tell people, especially clients that are trying to figure out their personal sense of style, and also to figure out kind of maybe a color palette or somewhere to start, is to look in your closet. So I'll have a client go in and look at, pull 3 to 5 items: jewelry, shoes, a bag, or a piece of clothing that you absolutely love. And then I can find, doing that, I can find the pattern. I can find the pattern of the things that you like. Maybe it's a floral, maybe you really like texture, you know, maybe there's a color pattern that I see a line through all the items, and maybe you can see that too. That's one kind of quick way to figure out your style and your color. So now I'd love to show you my bar. It's right off my home office, and the cool thing about this is this piece used to be my checkout stand at my shop. And so my husband really loved the piece, and he was like, you have to find a place for it. And so voila, place for it. And so this houses all our barware. We have a little stool here. This is a vintage piece that I had painted in this color, not to match anything here. It just happens that it does because I buy things I love and I paint things in colors that I love. And so this little roll top serves as a little serving area, I guess you can say, for our glassware. And it has like a tortoiseshell top. And so the interesting part about this little area is this piece of art. And so I found this at an antique market, and it had a different picture in there. I think it was a print, but I bought it for the frame. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I didn't have a place for it. And it was in my garage. And then we were having to clean out the garage. This piece fell over, but we weren't even touching it, but it fell over and the glass broke. And so my husband was taking the glass out and discovered this woman behind it, this black woman behind it. It was like she wanted to be seen. Like she was saying, hey, I'm behind here. And so I thought that was beautiful. And I said, oh, let's put the spirits with the spirit. So this is kind of how this kind of area happened. So coming off our bar area, you walk into our family room where first I have added this storage because we didn't have any storage in the house, as I said before. So that's why I have like credenzas and pieces everywhere. And so I had this piece built in our walkway. I wanted it to be deep enough for me to put my vases and all my candles, because I have a lot of candles and a lot of vases. But also I wanted it to be narrow enough that it wasn't intrusive into our walkway. And it also gave me a great option for display because I love coffee table books and also all my faces. And so I have here things that I've collected over the years, faces and animals and all sorts of things. I also love photography. So in addition to art, original art, I love photography. And so I have that displayed here and also here as well. I love sculpture because it adds dimension to a room. And so I've had this piece at an estate sale. I recently picked this up in Morocco, so it was like the perfect pairing, a belly dancer sash around a woman. And this piece also in Morocco, it's a Benin statue, which I was able to trace my lineage back to parts of Benin. And so this has been dying to find a piece. So I brought that back. And then this cabinet I got off a marketplace. I think it was Craigslist years ago. And a woman was from California. And in here I have like different wines. So when people come to our house, they bring us wine. We're not big drinkers, but we have a full bar because people bring us things all the time when we host. So back here is all of kind of our wine collection. So I love flowers, always have fresh flowers in the house. I worked at a florist when I was in high school. And so I saw this piece and thought it would be great here over this entry. And then I love juju hats, and so I had this one custom colored, and so it's from Cameroon, and it's a tribal headdress. And I also have another one over our TV. So this piece is from my mom, so I remember this one. This is from an antique market, this one as well, and also this one. So there's a lot of mixture of like African and Asian themes throughout the house, and I inherited that from my mom. She had a lot of Asian and African influences in our home, and so I apparently picked that up as well. I'm a collector of busts and faces, but you'll also see a lot of animal motifs around the house. So there's elephants and there's tigers and there's zebras all throughout the house. So I don't know where that came from. There's actually dogs as well. I love animals as well. So I love them and the patterns, and I love their faces and the expressions. So those are also displayed throughout my house. So coming into the living room, this is where we relax. We watch TV, watch movies. I'm a news junkie and also Marvel. There's always an element of surprise in a space. I love to ask, like, why this thing? And this is one of those things. So I buy what I love, and I love this Tibetan statue. Had no clue what I was gonna do with it. Zero, but I had it strapped in the car like a person, and I brought it home, and I tried it in a bunch of different places, and it didn't work. And then I remembered I had these pedestals, and I put it here. And then a couple months later, I was at an antique store that was going out of business, and they had a Tibetan hat. What are the chances? And I didn't know what I was going to do with that either, but I loved it and I bought it. And I put it on top of him, and then I just dressed him up, and like, it's the moment. It's like my favorite little, decorative moment here. So I just wanted to share that. My other favorite piece is this painting that hung in our living room when I was growing up. And this is where I pull a lot of the color. So the front door color, I pulled it from here, and you'll see it sprinkled throughout the house. It's also a color that's in my powder room, and you see this color again in my home office as well. So this is a really expansive space, and so there was dead space above the fireplace, and I found this mirror actually at Goodwill, and I thought it'd be perfect up here to draw your eye up to illustrate how tall the space is. And so I had my husband put it up there. I wasn't going up there, but I had him put it up there. Now, my husband loves my use of color and pattern. We actually went to a store the other day, and it was all like grays and taupes and beiges, and he was like, is that all they sell? Or do they have things online? They don't have any color in there. So he's like really used to spaces with color. And so he loves it. He loves that I move things around, and he loves our home. So this coffee table is from Bernhardt. I really wanted a round element in the space so that you can walk around it without sharp edges. And I wanted to bring in more gold. There's touches of gold throughout, so I wanted to bring that in as well. And it's generous enough on the top that allows me to display my coffee table books, more animal motifs, flowers, and all the things. So I used ottomans in the space to pull in color, to pull the color down onto the floor. And so these are vintage ottomans that I've had recovered in different fabrics. This fabric is actually the same fabric that is in my home office, so that kind of ties that in as well. And then this is in a colorway that is similar to the painting. So I'm just trying to bring the color down onto the floor so that it's all kind of dispersed throughout the room. I like TV. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't need to hide it. This TV is actually really old. We bought this TV when we first moved in. It still works, and I'm not getting rid of it until it dies. But and so I surrounded it with art. Actually, this is photography from our honeymoon in Hawaii. So I took these pictures, and I had them blown up of these trees that were on the beach that I was mesmerized by because I can walk under the roots. And then and I just displayed it amongst some vintage art. That's a juju hat. That's an Indonesian piece. That mask, and then this is a vintage picture of bamboo. So just to balance out the television. The chairs are custom vintage slipper chairs, in a cotton mohair. And I got these pillows from Swank Interiors, which is in Charlotte. And they've moved around. Like I've had them in my bedroom, and then I've moved them out here because I like to move my things around. And so these work really well because I don't have a lot of space and they don't have any arms, and they're generous. The seating is generous for them. So I found the side tables at a consignment store, and I had them turned into lamps. Now they were originally for sale. Even the woman at the lamp store wanted to buy them. And I brought them home, which is a no-no, just to see them. And I fell in love with them. And my husband saw them and was like, why are you selling them? You should keep them. And so, voila, I kept them. And I also had custom tortoiseshell shades made for them. And so, yes, so I ended up keeping the lamps, and I love them. So for my personal sense of style, I'm really influenced by the 1960s era. I love the women from that era. I love the clothing. I love the furniture. It's actually one of my favorite periods of art, which I discovered as I've been collecting that usually the pieces that I love that are abstract or oils are from the 1960s. So that's really, I love that period. So as you can see, our family room is very open concept, and it leads right into our dining room, which we used a round dining table because that's the best use of space for that. And we also have this area right off of it where we kick off our shoes because it's really near our entryway for the garage. And so this is kind of where we take our shoes off and put our bags at. And the feature wall here are these African masks. And the fun story behind these are, a friend of mine knows that I love to collect masks, and there was a collector that was getting rid of their collection. And I reached out to them and set up a time to go meet them, and I got pneumonia. And my husband had to go in my place, and he went, and him and the couple spent the entire day together. Like, they loved each other. The collector was downsizing, and their children didn't want the mask anymore, or just didn't want the mask. And so what he had done is, behind each mask is labeled with the date and the country that they were at when they found the mask. They traveled all throughout the continent of Africa and picked up different masks. And so originally I was going to sell these because, you know, I sell things, but my husband loved them. And I loved the story behind it. They wanted him to spend the night and stay for dinner and all the things. And but I ended up keeping them and displaying them here. So here on my left, we have a buffet, which you'll notice it's the same material, the raffia that's in my office. And it's perfect for a buffet for dining. So I can remove all these things when we're having a dinner party. But otherwise, it serves as display for my pieces. And in here, I would love to say that there's china, but there's actually mail and gloves and electronics and all the things that need to be hidden because, again, we don't have a ton of storage in our space. So it's a very functional piece for the dining room. Again, I have more faces displayed. This piece is from my grandmother. So it's a ashtray, but it's I think it's a Patasi ashtray. My grandmother didn't smoke, which is funny, but I have a ton of different kind of ashtrays that I inherited from her. And I have a lot of books about Black women and photography. And so I have, one of those displayed here. And then again, the African and the Asian influences can be seen in the mask that I collect here. And this particular mask is from artists in Canada that I just happened to find on Etsy. I was looking for something else and came across this artist, and so ended up purchasing a piece from him. So again, I love, like I said, faces. And this one I got at an estate sale. There was like a moment in my collecting that I was like, I need to find more busts. And then more buzz started to find me. And so I love this piece. I think it was on a pedestal and it wasn't a solid pedestal. It wasn't sturdy. So I just took it off and I just kind of laid her here. And this is where she's been for a number of years, because I've moved her around, but I just really just love the simplicity of her just being right here. I am not the table setter host, okay? I don't do these elaborate tables. I'm more of a buffet. Like, I'll have all of the things out for you and you kind of serve yourself. I am not, although I appreciate a well decorated table, that is not that is not my forte. So when someone walks into my home, I want them to feel relaxed, but I also want them to feel inspired. They should also see there's a lot to look at. So there's a lot of travel that we've done over the years. And so there's a lot of pieces from our travel, from collections, coffee table books and things. So they'll really get to know what we're interested in, because I purchased the types of books that, art and decor, photography. I really love photography. So you'll see photography around the house. We have a lot of original art, which is vintage art. Some I inherited from my mom, some I purchased on my own. And so they should feel that it's a very personal space. So now we're gonna head into the kitchen. The kitchen didn't originally look like this. We had it redone about a couple of years ago, I think in 2022, 2021. It was maple cabinets. I had them painted in this black color. I had new backsplash attic, countertops, and faucet and sink. And so it had a little bit of a facelift and new lighting as well. What I added to the kitchen that I kind of love is I added photos of my mom and my uncle and my great grandfather. So, because I really love to cook, and so I feel like they're cooking with me. I don't have a lot of other photos of family displayed around the home, but I kind of concentrated them here so that they're with me when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and using their recipes. And so that's kind of a special point for me in the kitchen. So above the stove, I added a little piece of art. I love like unexpected places where you find art. And so I added this piece. It was actually in my office in my shop, and it's protected by glass. So if anything spills or anything, from this cooking pops on it, it's just fine. This used to be closed storage, and then we added the glass for display. And so some of these are from wedding gifts when we got married, and then that's pottery, that's original pottery. And then I have some of my favorite tchotchkes here from my mom and my grandmother. And then here are dishes that we use daily, and then some vases along the top that I pull out when I have a lot of flowers. I don't have a signature dish, but I love like ethnic foods. So I'm mainly cooking. I have like a Moroccan dish that I cook. I have Italian dishes, Mexican dishes. So I'm really like all over the place as far as like types of foods that I cook. I'm not frying chicken. I don't do that. So right off of the kitchen, we have our powder room, which I decided to infuse with color. It's my little jewel box. And so, again, you'll see that color, that salsa from Benjamin Moore. This is where I decided to use it and got the inspiration to paint the door. And I have a gallery of art. Some I've collected, some are prints, and some are from my mom, some from my grandmother. And so they're all kind of displayed here. It's a fun little space that people aren't expecting when they come into the powder room. I also added this custom sink skirt that I bring in some more color. And it's the same pattern that you'll find in my office, in the chairs. So it kind of brings that pattern through. And so it's just it's a really fun space. The word home means refuge. It means my place of peace and serenity. It's like a warm blanket. It's where I can be myself, where I'm surrounded by things I love, around my ancestors, because I've inherited so many of the pieces in my home from my family. So it's just, that's what home means to me.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Charleston, South Carolina for a look inside jewelry designer Janet Gregg's maximalist home. She spent a decade living in New York before deciding to plant her roots in Charleston, where she has been living for the past 17 years. After an illustrious career working for Charlotte Moss and Vaughan Lighting out of London, Janet has developed a keen eye for design. A maximalist at heart, inside Janet's home you'll find bold colors, a beautiful collection of artwork, and a gorgeous mix of high-end and DIY decor. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Janet. Welcome to my house in downtown Charleston. I can hardly wait to show you around. Please come in. Welcome to my first floor of my townhouse, and people would walk in and initially say, "Oh my gosh, this is such a strange shaped space," but miraculously I've figured something out that makes it sort of cozy because I entertain all the time, and this entrance is quite important because you kind of walk in and you sort of immediately take in what's going to be happening throughout the house, which I actually adore, this part of it. When I first moved in the house 8 years ago, I love this color. It's called eraser pink, and I really have loved it, actually loved it. And a dear friend of mine, a decorating friend of mine, helped me, and we did this kind of dark Farrow ball color on the doors, the steps, and the back of the front door. Well, I'm ready for a change. And I'm very concerned is the fact that I cannot make a decision, which is not like me at all, not even close. So I'm just going from every shade of color you can imagine except greens or blues, what to paint down here. So hopefully someday I will. But for now, I do love the eraser pink. And this installation, my original color blocks, which I design and sell, I can obviously change this. And I have changed it a couple times to any combination, any colors I wish. So that will be coming down the road as well, a change. And this, as I said, challenge space. In my townhouse, there is no closet, coat closet. So I've created this little nook here, and I just had hooks put on the walls, and there are my mess of coats and bags. So I absolutely love this table. I found it at TJ Maxx, whether I should admit that or not. I'm quite proud of it. And it fits perfectly there. And I really wanted something that was not terribly heavy, and I wanted it clear so that it wouldn't jam up the space, as well as a bench, which is perfect to put a handbag or what have you when you're popping upstairs or groceries. And then this is it's actually miraculous that this sideboard, which I did find, this was in my old office, fits absolutely perfect in that little nook, which is amazing. And every few months, I think I'm going to lacquer it, but yet I've yet to do that. Maybe one day. We are now going to go upstairs to my second floor, which you'll see is an open space with my dining room, my kitchen, and my living room, as well as a walkthrough to the powder room and a bar. So please join me on the second floor. Welcome to my living room. I have to say, when I first moved here, when I bought this place 8 years ago, I was looking for a couple years to find something in Charleston to buy. And I was adamant that I wanted a fireplace and a garden. Well, I have neither of those things, and I couldn't be happier in this house. So by saying that, no fireplace in this lovely living room, but I have to say it's so cozy. I really do live in this room because I entertain all the time, and which we'll talk about as well a little bit later. But this painting is very much of a treasure for me and a gift from Sally King Benedict, who I absolutely love like a daughter. And I had her first show. She's an incredible artist. She's known nationally, if not internationally. And she very kindly gave me that beautiful painting, which was probably about 14, 15 years ago. And these pieces of furniture I've collected over the years when I lived in New York and I worked for Charlotte Moss, and I was able to get her wonderful, she was kind enough to share her wonderful sources of painters and fabrics, and I have obviously an enormous fetish of cream with the colored pillows that I've made. Obviously I've had these made, these pillows, with scraps or things I've collected. I adore white and cream lamps. They're absolutely everywhere, all different textures. Here we have one that it's, twig, driftwood, what have you. These lampshades I've designed and had made. That was in my other past life. I started Vaughan Lighting based out of London, and I was so fortunate to have this wonderful job and loved it dearly. And one of my responsibilities was design and American-made lampshades, which was quite fun. This was also a Vaughan piece, the chinoiserie pedestal table, which they very kindly gave me, which I absolutely adore. But this thrift shop in Palm Beach, the Chester drawers, hate to admit, all my secrets, TJ Maxx, and I changed the handles to, I can't even remember where I found those, unfortunately. And a lot of the beautiful antiques were my parents'. And I love mixing the old with the new. The lucite bench was this fabulous leather crocodile fabric, is so chic. And you can see it's just an eclectic group that I think works, and they marry well together. The art I've collected since I was at least 18. Many of these pieces were, as I mentioned, gifts. My family, I have cousins and that are incredibly talented, beautiful artists. There's several of their things in the room, which I'm so proud of. And they've kindly shared all their beautiful wares with me as gifts or what have you. And I hate to admit, but there's hardly any table space anywhere. So I do have lots of collections on the tables. Okay, I have to laugh when you ask, am I a maximalist? It's, yes, very much so. I try, when something new comes into the house, I try to take something old out. Layers, would say it lightly. I feel safe in having cream fabrics, cream lamps, soft lampshades. Since, as I mentioned in my previous job, I did work for this amazing international lighting company, and I learned so much between Charlotte Moss and Vaughan Lighting. And lighting and lampshades are incredibly important. And I literally have found some of these lampshades. This, I'm almost certain, came from TJ Maxx or Lowe's. Lowe's used to have the most divine linen lampshades. I can't even tell you how many of those I was able to purchase over the years. This coffee table, oh my gosh, the glass base was literally on the way to the trash can when I lived in New York, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm assuming that the base was broken in shipping. So I ran down the street, got a taxi, put that in the taxi, took it home, stuffed it somewhere until I could find the perfect marble base, which I put on top, which I adore. I think it worked out just fine. So maximalists would say it lightly. Yes, I am. I was very fortunate to have a wonderful 14-year, incredibly fulfilling, loving, cherished life in New York. There are just so many levels of it that I was just so happy and grateful for, and wonderful careers. And then I ended up starting my own business while I was in New York, and now I design jewelry. But I've always done flowers for parties and events, and I continue to do that. But my main business is jewelry. And I moved to Charleston, renting this little cottage downtown, and a dear, dear friend of mine found the cottage basically for me, sight unseen, and I took it. And then here I am 17 years later and love every bit of it. Absolutely love it here. But that would spark me to Charleston, yes. I was looking for a little bit of time for something to buy, and as we all know, Charleston real estate is quite expensive, and I was fortunate to, Yes, within 45 minutes of seeing this, I left a check deposit. Yes, I knew it immediately. And one of the main reasons why I knew immediately, which we will see, we're going to walk over to my dining room, is that I walked up these wonderful my stairs, and the first thing I noticed, of course, the first thing was drawn to me was this dining space. Now, of course, we don't have room for a dining room, but I very successfully, I have a table set here for luncheon, but I have 2 wings in this table, and I can spread it out here, and I can seat easily 14 people, which is pretty miraculous, and somehow works. And then these bookcases were in my office, which I absolutely love, but I have no shelves, and this was, I think, a wonderful way to warm up the space and divide it somewhat. My very lovely parents, when we sold our house in Virginia, they very kindly gave me a lot of their pieces. They just didn't need it in their little house in Florida. So these lacquer chairs are just so typical from the late 70s, early 80s, and I absolutely adore them. This was the original color, the colors that I grew up with. And my mother, my sweet dear mother, made these chairs, these needlepoint chairs. I did the design and I drew it, and then she stitches them at 94, which is actually miraculous. And I found these little pickle chairs in my travels and had the upholsterer obviously upholster them. In some of these details on my table, I would like to reach out and mention that the flowers, of course, I did. I couldn't even begin to count how many containers I have. I mix them up all the time. I truly use them, most of them, almost every few weeks. And every single flower, you can see I do the limes. I use limes. I love fruit and flower arrangements. All those flowers came from Trader Joe's the day of. And I actually had those in the refrigerator because I've had 2 parties in the past 10 days before Homeworthy arrived. And I just put them in the refrigerator. It just worked fantastic. I just love it. You can see the glasses don't match entirely. The china doesn't match entirely. I buy things in sets in even numbers so that I mix and match it. And it just works. These were my mother's bowls, which are these lovely blue crystal Wedgwood, and I adore them. And the place cards I designed and made, and they're never 2 tables set exactly alike, ever. So that kind of makes the fun of it, is certainly when you've been fortunate enough to be invited back, then you know that you're going to be surprised. And also this lovely gift, a dear friend of mine gave me their kitchen towels, and she gave me 12, which was so incredibly generous. And I thought, my gosh, I'm not going to use them as kitchen towels. I'm going to have this beautiful local monogram, or make them. And I'm just thrilled with them. And I, of course, designed it, the initials. I love the question of what kind of host am I, which I have to say one of the many, many reasons why I love being in Charleston is because I absolutely adore sharing my home. And I'm very spontaneous a lot of the time, and I'll ask people to come over for a quick drink on their way to supper, or I'll have friends in town, and I say, please come by for a drink, please bring your house guests, please bring your friends of your house guests, and I really mean that, I truly do, and it's so casual here. And then when I have dinner parties, I'm not the most divine cook, not even close. It's an experience, as someone said to me once, by being here. It's certainly not this incredible food scenario. But as far as the company, I put so much thought into my guest list. And most of the time, they're not going to know each other. Maybe 1 or 2 people, but it's not like I would create 14 people and they're all besties and do everything together. I'd really try to mix it up. And I love introducing people to others that I know that they would get along and they would enjoy each other. And that's the best part of it all. And I try to have at least 3 courses, if not 4, soup, main course, salad, and dessert, because you're at a table to enjoy each other, so why not spread it out? And so that is how, in a short version, how I would say, what kind of host am I? My really close friends sort of make fun of me a little bit because of my bookcase, and I understand that because some of it, I'm very fortunate to have the most amazing group of godchildren, which I cherish and love sometimes more than their parents, I'm sure, some days. So I have lots of pictures of my beautiful godchildren, and which I see very proudly in these bookcases here. My family, my cousins, and I'm an adamant note writer, and I just don't want to sound like I'm flattering myself, but my handwriting is so hideous. So if you're fortunate to get one, good luck reading it. But it's sincere. So some of these incredible notes that people have kindly sent to me, I can't help but toss them in a bookcase somewhere or in a closet. So I have I have lots of my favorites, but I couldn't fit them all in the bookcase. And then of course all these beautiful books that I've been collecting for years and years and years. And I have pictures of travel. I mean, it's really, really my closest friends and godchildren and family, but it could be chock-a-block full, and I tried to in some way minimize it so it's not too much. But I really do love my bookcase very much. Somehow works in here. Please join me in my kitchen area, which you can see is a galley kitchen, which as I mentioned, I was fortunate enough to buy this house, and the cabinets were painted, all the stonework was here. I did not pick any of this out, but I have to say it really does work because it is a bit dark, obviously, but not busy. And I think, especially at night, it bounces off the walls quite well, the lighting, and it's comfortable. And I think because I have it, obviously, I divide the space with these greens that I cut, and I don't have bar stools because I would never sit at them. So I'm really trying to create a room here, which I think works. I really do think works. And I'm quite fond of the kitchen. But I do have a pet peeve. If you're in my house for a dinner party or cocktail party, I really have a hard time with people hanging out in the kitchen, because then they're escaping everyone else, and I have my sweet bartender and they're getting in his way. So I please don't do that when you come to the house. I do have a lot of things around the house, yes, absolutely. But in my countertops, eventually I'm going to change this and put mirror. I haven't done that yet. But I try not to have hardly anything on the countertops. Now, this is exactly how it looks, I promise. So I have the bowl for the fruits. I have my little coffee station. And then I have that, which is a bit cluttered, which I should probably take away. But anyway, there it is. And my paper towels. So clean space. I really do live like this, clean space. Miraculous. Because the rest of the house is pretty cluttered. So I think this is quite sincere by looking at this space. Yeah, this doesn't change. Well, this bench is about the fact that I found this at TJ Maxx. Again, sharing all my dark secrets. The needlepoint pillow I made, again, and my lovely seamstress put that together. My mother did the stitching, and it looks perfect there, I think. These are photographs I found I'm quite happy with. And yes, the bench I just had reupholstered. The pillow, the patchwork pillow, I came up with that, put those fabrics together. Yes, I do love that bench. Not many people sit at, though, because this is in the danger zone. You're not supposed to come in this area when I entertain. And they listen. So that's good. So it's a prop. The bench is a prop. And you can obviously notice I didn't do a chandelier in the dining area. I did it in the kitchen, so it divides the space a little bit better. And then dimmers are everywhere in the house. They're crucial. I can't even tell you how crucial it is. So the lights dim. It's actually quite nice at night. It's the lighting in this space is quite nice. I do love my things, and I do curate them, and I do fold some in and out and recycle some, not so much, give away, what have you. And because there are some things that are semi-valuable and so many things that aren't, which is absolutely fine. I love mixing it, and that creates a story, but it's confidence too, that it's okay that this is a reproduction. And the top of this table has been loved and used by families, and it's not perfect, and that's okay. And I'm not covering up because I'm ashamed that it's not perfect. It's lived in, and I think every bit of this house is absolutely lived in. And if something were to break accidentally, it's absolutely fine. So why not show it, and why not have it out? Like china, oh my gosh, I have some really lovely china, some lovely crystal. I use it all the time. I use it on the porch. I'm not afraid of breaking anything, and if it does break, then it's okay, but it's used. And I feel very confident that we should try to use. I have 3 sets of silver pattern that I use, that I love them. And they were my grandmother's and my mother's, and I adore them. And I use them absolutely every single day. I live in this little space in my house, and I take such pride in using it. And as much as I travel for work and with my family and what have you, and seeing friends, when I'm here, I cherish every minute being here. And that's part of it, is by taking full advantage of your grandmother's antiques or your great-grandmother's linens or whatever china that you've been given or have collected. Please use it. and I have plenty of things that I found at the Goodwill for a couple dollars that I fill in with the finer things. And I'm absolutely fine with that. So please follow me to my bar, which is in the hallway. And I do have a surprise for you once we get there. So please follow me. When I purchased this townhouse 8 years ago, I was very fortunate. I had several friends of mine, dear friends of mine from New York, or we used to live in New York together, and they kindly helped me move. 3 of the 6, 7 friends were decorators, very accomplished decorators. So one I love so much, and I love them all, but one was so funny. She said, Janet, I know you so well, you're never going to have this made into a closet. So I know that furniture, that piece of furniture that was up in your bedroom, I want you to put that in here, and you're going to put your glass collection, you're going to make this a bar. I was like, okay, absolutely, without any doubt. So there you have it. This was an armoire in my previous bedroom, and I have a very serious, almost scary glass fetish. I admit it. It's a bit weird. I have glasses above here, and I truly, when I mean that, I use them all the time. And I have glasses over the refrigerator, so it's crazy wacky. And then when the men come, they're so sweet when they come. I ask them to be the bartender, of course, and help with the drinks. And I have to do like a quick dictatorial, because who would ever know that this was a wine glass, which it is. Or we have this wine glass, which couldn't be more opposite, but we use them all. And there's no rhyme or reason, just shaking it up. So I've found these great little tables you can see inside where I put my wine, stack those on these tables, which are the exact same, these little stacked tables. I have these wicker rattan. I lacquered these tables chocolate brown so that you couldn't see them. And I have all the accoutrement in there and leftovers and what have you. And it just seems to work. And then when I do have, sometimes when they're working too hard, the bartenders, they'll take a little break and they'll shut the door like this, and I've got to come in and check on them to make certain that they're not leaving me for hours on end, and they've got to, come back to the guests. I really do, it sounds so crazy, but my bar really is one of my favorite rooms in the house, and I'm eventually going to do a finish in here, a wall finish. I just haven't gotten there yet. But this bust, this wonderful bust, I made her. I lacquered that, and then I found these fantastic gray shells in the beaches of North Carolina. I absolutely adore her. This was my old house. I was on the cover of House Beautiful, and that's a very special photograph, time in my life, and I love looking at that and bragging about that whenever anyone walks in here. And I have these fabulous sconces that I've made. I have found the brackets, found the mirrors all separately, and then I light those candles at night, and they're just absolutely fab. So it's a super cozy little space. So here we go into the hallway on our way to the powder room. Now, everything in the house was white when I first moved in, and obviously that's not the case now. But I did come up with this wonderful color. I call it mushroom, and I have absolutely no idea how I landed it, but I truly adore it. And a lot of people ask, they said, well, Jenna, how do you have this visual of confidence of hanging art? And it just seems to work. Now, I'm not flattering myself by saying that. This is what my friends kindly say. And I said, well, I collect frames wherever you can find them, you name it. I have wonderful places where I can have mats cut. They all change. I try not to put the same artists together to obviously create different patterns, different textures, different, I don't want to say themes, but settings or objects or still lifes or nudes or drawings of such. And they're all placed. And obviously the size of the frames has a lot to do how you stack it. This is another needlepoint creation I made. I found the chair at auction, and I designed that and made that. I absolutely adore that little chair. Into the hallway, which these sculptures were in my previous house in the garden. A dear friend of mine gave me these wonderful statues for my birthday one year, and I absolutely adore them. And I obviously don't have a garden. And another great friend decorator said, oh my gosh, Janet, they're perfect. Hercules is perfect in the hall. It's like perfect. Oh my gosh, it absolutely is. And I had this piece of glass cut obviously in the smoky color, which I think works perfectly in here. And I couldn't be happier. Love the mirror, one of my finds. And that was a gift that just sort of, that top piece just sort of makes it. Please join me in my very bright pink powder room. Can hardly wait to show you. Here we are. As you can see, pink is putting it mildly. It's electric. And I adore this room, and I can't even begin to tell you how I come up with that. I needed something super happy in my life, and I said, well, what could I paint? I said, oh my gosh, this is white, now it's going to be pink, and I love it so much. And the chandelier I found it a thrift shop, the base, and I covered the whole thing in faux turquoise and made these little, I don't know what you call that, but in any event, I did that. And lampshades I found, and I just adore it. And then I strung it at the top, as you can see, with what I had a chain done, because if I had to restructure the whole lighting, I just didn't know if I'd love it forever. So I just rigged it, and here you have it. And these are, again, this was someone gave me this beautiful portrait, which I adore. It was a beautiful artist in town, and she kindly gave me that as a gift, and I really love it. But this is just, again, some collections of things I've had over the years. Let's go upstairs. I have a couple bedrooms and a den to show you. So welcome to the third floor hallway. This is a very special painting that a dear friend of mine, Ann Darby Parker, painted and gave me, and I just absolutely adore it. And it very much grounds the space perfectly. I made the shell mirror. I found the mirror at the Goodwill, and then I covered this in a couple days, and I just absolutely adore it. And I made this bust as well. Dear friends gave me this box as a gift, and I thought, my gosh, what in the world am I going to put in it? But I somehow came up with this idea, this concept, and it's turned out quite well. These curtains I love so much, and one of my very best friends gave me a pair of these curtains, and I'm so proud of them. They're absolutely beautiful. And I have the other set, the other pair, in my den, so please join me. These dark Pharaoh ball, I adore these walls, and it worked out perfectly. A decorative friend of mine convinced me in this color, and thank God I listened to her, because I absolutely love it. Painting I collected, I found in New York. Patchwork pillows I made. My mother made this incredible needlepoint rug. It's really fantastic, and it was in our house in Virginia Beach where I grew up, and I just love it, absolutely love it. My father made that little chest of drawers. So there's a lot of very sentimental things in this room, and I really am crazy about it. So I hate to admit, one of the reasons why I really love this room is the television is in this room. Now, as you can see, my living room, there is not a television. So this is where the TV watching happens. And it's quite dark and private. It's perfect for viewing. So I'm very pleased with this room. So I'd love to show you my bedroom next, which is right across the hall. This is my bedroom. And as you can see, it's all neutrals, which is so soothing. I'm very, very pleased with this room. I found these chairs when I lived in New York. They've been reupholstered a couple times. My mother made this rug as well. They're all Virginia flowers. It was a project she did through the Garden Club of Virginia, and we absolutely adore it, and it's a very precious piece for me. A lot of the furniture I grew up with, and the bed I created, those were old curtains above the bed, and then a friend of mine found that fantastic top piece for the curtains. They work perfectly, and it's just a very soothing, wonderful light. We never close the curtains. When I have house guests, they get a little angry about that, but that's okay. They're going to have to deal with it, because I always have the curtains open, because it's like a tree fort up here. The trees are beautiful. It's just such a nice view. And then I have a little porch outside, which I really spent a lot of time out here during COVID, so it was quite a nice escape. I wanted to stack a lot, so I found that little bench. It may have been my mother's, actually. I think it was. And then I found that wonderful rawhide that it's ultra suede, and I just had it upholstered. And then, of course, I put my magazines, and I have my glasses, and it just sort of a catch-all with one of these very, very precious. This was a gift that I'm so proud of, but a wonderful Charleston basket that was made locally, very special to me. I have this garden bench here that I put magazines if I sit, watch television, or house guests, what have you. It's just comfortable. And unfortunately, there's a lot of chairs in this house, unfortunately, for some people trying to get around, but I don't know, they just warm up the space. And I do use them. I really do. It seems strange, but I really do. And then if you go down this hallway, you can see my collection continues down this hallway. And I took that space and I found that little chandelier, which works up there as well. When I moved from my old house in Charleston to this house, I remember counting how many paintings I had then. And I think it was close to like 85, which really isn't very much. I have no idea what I have now. But I remember I was in a car ride for 6+ hours. And during the car ride, I went through each room, and I hadn't hung the paintings yet because I just moved. And I was trying to decide where I was going to put what art. And I did that in that 6-hour car ride. And I decided what was going where and how I was going to semi-place it and what pieces I'd like in that room and what have you. And that's how this all became black and white. A lot of it comes from junk stores. Several of them I did a big fat trade for jewelry, for art. Many things I did for that. And I just have been collecting them for just years and years and years. Here we are on my 3rd floor balcony right off of my bedroom, and this space is just such a wonderful refuge. It's so comfortable. This breeze is amazing. It's always breezy and comfortable up here, and just heaven. I just love coming out here. And at some point I'm going to plant these. I haven't gotten around to it, but it's just a cozy space and I really admit I come out here in my pajamas. I probably shouldn't, but I do. And coffee. Welcome to the guest room. This room is quite loved. Dogs have stayed here with their owners, children, grown-ups. I mean, it's a wonderful little double bed that I found in London and I had brought over, but it's so comfortable in here. I adore these colors. I came up with this color, and several of these pieces actually I found in England at auction when I was working for Vaughan. And I would travel there quite a bit. My father made this bedside table, which I adore. Very proud of that. These were given to me by my other wonderful dear best friend that gave me the curtains in the hallway. How lucky am I? I mean, this is just the sweetest thing, and it makes this room. They're wonderful. This chair was in my office, and I bought it at the Goodwill for $30, and I had it reupholstered in this vinyl, which is bulletproof, literally. You can just wipe it off. It's so fantastic. I love it. It's perfect in here. The linens I've collected. The painting, I did a trade. It was a great friend of mine, this beautiful artist that gave that to me. The chandelier I made. So please join me in the guest bathroom, which I'm very proud of because I painted these walls. And this was probably one of the most fun projects I've ever done. I literally lived in this space for about 2 weeks, almost day in, day out, truly. And I did not use a stencil. I did not have a pattern. The paint was in my ground floor is a scrap paint, like a sample, that it just happened to work perfectly. And it was so much fun to do. I had the best time. I just absolutely love it. And I made this bust. This was from my office. That's covered in coral. And I use it for lots of my displays and my jewelry. And her name is Coco. We had to name it. Too much love went into it. She has to have a name. And I just love it so much. This is just a great little space. Very comfortable, great guest bathroom. Thank you, Homeworthy. I loved having you. You are the perfect guest. And unfortunately, you're going to have to leave now because my guests are about to join for lunch. You've almost overstayed your welcome. But thank you. I'm just thrilled to meet you, and I so hope you'll come again. So thank you.
Hi. Oh, Homeworthy's today. Give me 1 minute. Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Calvin Rezick. This is Disco Stardust, and welcome to my Brooklyn, New York apartment.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Calvin Rezick. I am a cozy, opulent, maximalist interior designer. And right now we are in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where I have my 1-bedroom apartment with me and my cat, Disco Stardust. I stumbled on this apartment online and had to come check it out. And the space is great. I've loved the layout. And I think I asked if there was a 2-year lease, and they said, I don't know about that, but it's rent stabilized. And I was like, okay, why didn't you list this? This would have sold a lot quicker. Let's do this. And I was able to get a 2-year lease. I've been here over 2 years now, signed another 2 years because I'm here to stay. And I'm so happy that I could have a place to nest and fully do it up and know that I won't have to be kicked out anytime soon. So it's just a part of my nature that I need a sanctuary. And I think once you realize that you're gonna lose the deposit, I think then the fun comes in. You just let that go, and paint is so important. So the first thing we did was paint. And I worked with my friend Colton, who is a illustrator, and we fully did decorative painting throughout the whole house. To define my aesthetic at a broad scale, I would say I'm a cozy, opulent maximalist. So what that means, there's a dichotomy that I've realized actually was built from my youth, where I was really raised on Americana, and like my family really was a part of that American dream, I would say. So I do have like roots, and I really like this like down-to-earth, comfortable style, but I fantasized. I grew up in Cleveland. All I wanted was out. So I really was enthralled with pop culture and anything that was not like shoveling snow and the white picket fence. So I mix this exoticism with like down-to-earth, comfortable. I love opulence, but super livable. So that's kind of what that cozy opulence means. It's all that back and forth that I love to play with, grit and glamour. From there, really the color palette all sparked from Indian block prints. I really love handcraft, and it all started with a bandana that I have there. Pulling from those colors, they're earthy but colorful. And I think people are so scared to use color, but when you tone it down to earthy tones, it's really this moody fantasy, and you could still have like a vibrant home without it being so overwhelming. And that's what I really love about the space. First off, we'll go in the living room, which is here. And the color palette, I originally had this in my old apartment that I was at for 1 year, and I just tweaked it up a little bit. The whole color story really started from this bandana from Les Indiens, and it's a block print, Indian block print, which I really have grown to love over the years. And it's just to see the handwork, and literally each color is stamped on. I love this orange. It's just moody but vibrant at the same time, which same. So first we'll talk about the walls since we're here. They have data molding throughout. Already here, it's a pre-war building from the 1920s. And I think they must have added, this must have been a bigger house that they added this wall, but the molding wasn't here on this side. So my friend Colton Ackerman, who I worked with on my last apartment, on this apartment, we really riff off of each other really well. And he really does this like cartoony trompe-l'oeil, we call it. And I know it's not real trompe-l'oeil, people calm down. We do a cartoony take on trompe-l'oeil, which trompe-l'oeil is to fool the eye. So I do think this actually is a good take on it, because we just continued this data molding throughout and just painted it in a wonky way. I love the wonkiness and the kind of like not seriousness of it. So that really started the entire living room. And then I'll just walk through the whole space. So of course I love collecting art. This, everybody's like, why do you have JFK on the wall? It's a paint by number that my grandpa painted, and I actually had him sign it before he passed. So there's Carl. He even knew the date, the year that he made it. So I just love it, and it really goes into this Americana lifestyle that I really feel like my upbringing was about and my family's all about. We're very big on pop culture. My grandpa, we called him Papa, from West Virginia. He loved Johnny Cash, and my grandma loved Elvis and actually named my mom after Lisa Marie Presley. I've been to like Beatles festivals growing up, and it's kind of funny to link it because I'm a big pop culture fan, which you will see very easily. This little guy, I used to work for One Kings Lane, and we had an artist come in, Vicky Chu, and she painted literally whatever you wanted. She specializes in these animals. And I like to say that my animal would be a flamingo, being tall and lanky and fabulous. And I lived in Miami. That was my dream, to live in Miami. So when I first moved to New York, I was like, what is a pink flamingo flying into the city? So that is a representation of that. And then I found this vintage map from, I want to say the 60s. And I just love, it's kind of like on your way out to see like, oh, where am I going? And I love all the little doodads and people pointing out what's going on in Manhattan. They were throwing away a lot of books at the library at my school, and I literally for weeks after class dig through all of these books to collect because I just thought it would be amazing to have. So here it's just a mix of all of that. This is a wig from High School Musical. My friend Katie, who I'm officiating her wedding, she's my oldest friend all the way from elementary school, and she came in and there was a High School Musical party, and we fully got dressed up, and Sharpay is my girl. I thought I wanted to date her growing up, but then I realized I wanted to be her. So it didn't come in on time, this wig, so I had to come up with a plan B, and now I just have this wig that I thought was hilarious to have on display. I have to show, I was digging through my my bedroom from growing up, and I found this pin that I taped over Troy's face because I only wanted Sharpay in it, which I just thought was hilarious. One of my favorite books, Tom Bianchi from Fire Island Pines. I read Dancer from the Dance, which is somewhere around here, by Andrew Holleran in college, and it was my favorite book completely. I did a whole project on it in design school, and the New York 70s lifestyle of being gay and going to Fire Island was everything. So I found this book in Miami when I was still there. It was the last one. And am I allowed to open this? Just showing Fire Island in its prime. Up here, I have kind of a collage of these borderline creepy, is it even borderline? Stuffed animals. I love that it is the first thing that you see when you walk in, and they're like peering over, and I love that this light even makes it more terrifying. And then I do have notes throughout the whole house of fat orange cats. My first cat, Bella, was a big sassy orange cat. So I do collect these throughout. Just another little fun note of my life. Going down here, I found this at a flea market with my grandpa, and in college in Cleveland. I feel like to go to the Midwest, it's very untapped, which I really love. And I swear I got it for about $40, and it's like such a fabulous piece that I will always have. This guy is a moment, and yes, I do have a lot of self-portraits in my house. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm a Carrie in Sex and the City. I'm a Carrie. Like, it is what it is. But this is a fun story. In high school, we had an actual film developing class, and my art teacher, Mr. Casper, was very generous with me and really let me express myself however I wanted to. So the challenge was portraits. That was the task. And everybody was taking like flowers of their friends. And I'm like, no, I'm doing me. This became so controversial because I took off my shirt and I had tape wrapped all around me, and they let me do it. We had to like clear the room, and then he took my film and I had to talk with the principal to get approval to develop it. So I have been known to be controversial and to be bold, but this was at a time that I was coming out. So I kind of love that it's kind of representing the madness and, I don't know, craziness of that time, figuring yourself out. I will say, this is from Anthropology Outlet. It's a vintage velvet nightstand that I just thought was so fabulous. And when I was bringing back all of my grandparents' heirlooms, I had a U-Haul, and I knew that I was gonna take a pit stop to Pittsburgh at the Anthropology Outlet. So a lot of my lights are actually from there. I just went to town and then brought my electrician to rewire everything, which really makes a difference from the boob light that we all know. In a rental, the sofa I had delivered from LA. It's called HD Buttercup is the company, and they did a collab with Hay. And just to find a sofa that is unique and comfortable and colorful, like, this is my sofa. Like, I feel like people walk in and are like, of course, this is your sofa. I tend to gravitate towards clean lined furniture, which I do feel like keeps the home fresh, and then pile it in with rich textiles and that Indian block print that I talk about a lot. Also, this coffee table, I've always loved ABC Home and could never afford it, of course. So when I lived, I had a time where I lived in Cleveland during COVID, and something was itching in my head that I need to stop at the Our House outlet. And I walked in and they were doing a crazy sale, and I saw this, and this is like the ABC Home fantasy that this is my dream coffee table. So I just love this metallic mirrored top, and I love that I could shove books like on the ground, and it's just a little 70s fun that I love to mix in. A little glam, don't we all need it? For this collage on the wall, it's fully a mix of past and fantasy. So this part I really cherish. It's from my grandparents' house. It's a cutout of the wallpaper that was in my bedroom there. And my grandparents were not fancy at all, but for some reason, they had this fabulous toile wallpaper that I, would wake up to and look at every morning. So as they were renovating to sell the house after they passed, I was like, can I please have a cut of this wallpaper? And I'm just so happy that I could have a slice of the home that really was home to me. That was like sanctuary growing up, was staying at my grandparents' house. Then we have a dose of queer art, Carlos Rodriguez. I love cheekiness. I feel like he does it in a cartoony way that's like playful and cute. And of course we have Lady Gaga, the Fame Monster, the Monster Ball I went to twice growing up before I knew I was gay. Yes, I saw Gaga twice before I knew I was gay. And this was the poster that I had hanging in my bedroom. Really, Gaga showed me fashion and eroticism and really being daring and bold, and I owe a lot to her. You see these everywhere now. I got this in Miami, where I went to college, at the Lincoln Antique Market of my birth month. And then this is actually a page that I ripped out of my high school library. It was this whole like pop culture book, and I was flipping through it one day after school, and every single page had dicks and boobs drawn over it, like, kids writing all over everything. So I flipped to this, and this is a photo of Woodstock, and I was like, I have to have this. And I literally ripped out the page, because the book was trashed anyways, folded it up, you could still see the crease, and took it home. So this is a touch of my high school rebellion, I guess. This room is facing pretty much a brick wall, which I kind of am fine with. A lot of the times you're coming home at night anyways. And some artist friend that I was talking with was talking about their own home, and they mentioned how their space is dark and they just decided to own it. And it really resonated and spoke to me that not every single house has to be light and bright. And I am on the second floor, so it isn't the most light and bright. So these are from Simrain. I'm probably saying it very American and not chic and French, but they are a French company. I went to Paris and one of my stops was to go here, and I spent hours picking out fabrics. Again, Indian block print, and just they're so colorful and fun and floral, and I'm absolutely obsessed. So I bought them and threw it up, and it's a key part of my house. This is Disco Stardust. She's saying hello. She is a COVID cat that I got during COVID when I was staying in Cleveland with my grandpa, which was, you know, a silver lining moment that I completely cherish, spending time with him in his final years. And she's incredibly needy and sassy and sweet, and we're one and the same. So she will be running around and she adds chaos to my life. So this I just got in. I work for Darren Hinault, and he has a showroom called Tent and has tons of antique rugs, and this is a Saruk from the 1880s, which it's just, I love Saruks, and I love how colorful, and it literally picks up all the colors in this house and home, and I'm very grateful to be able to have it at an employee discount. So going back into furniture that I have scored from places that I've worked, this is from One Kings Lane. It was a showroom piece. I visual merchandised there and helped open all their stores in their heyday. And I just had to have this bench, which I just think adds another layer to the mix. And then, of course, we have the Madonna sex book, which I love controversy and things that are enticing and keep you on your toes. So that is an essential in this house. And tying in to Madonna, we have the Interview magazine, which when the Gucci Soho store launched, they re-released it all. And it ties back to my mother, who raised me on Madonna and that Blonde Ambition, which you'll see more of. This is another piece from One Kings Lane. They did a show house. They brought it all back to the store, and nobody knew what the price was, where it was from, anything. And my manager, Sarah, hey Sarah, was like, just take it. We don't want to deal with this. So I have this gorgeous framed fabric piece casually leaning up against the wall. First off, I didn't have a TV for years, and when I moved into my last place, I'm like, we're doing this, and we're doing it right. And I got the Samsung frame TV, which is essential for anyone with an aesthetic eye. It needs everything to be pretty. This is a fan that was probably from the dollar store from my grandparents' house that I took and thought was absolutely fabulous. October Joe is another queer artist that I follow on Instagram, and thought that almost represented like a day in the life of me. And then this piece was the piece that I was most excited for to bring in this house. I planned the whole space to make sure that this would fit, and I just acquired it, and this is the first time that I have it. And it is an heirloom from my grandparents. At first, it just looks like another TV console, but it actually pops up and is a record player. So this is from my grandparents' house. It was in the attic growing up, and me and my childhood friend Brendan would play Legos in this room and put on my parents' records that they had. And I just thought it was so chic. And it also ties into the clean line furniture that I have. It's, to me, very mid-century modern, and I just am very honored to be able to have this in my house. So from here, we will go into the kitchen, which is right off of the front door. So I knew I needed an impactful moment. the inspiration for this room, I don't know how I come up with these things, but that's why I do what I do. And that's how my brain works. It was, what would Marie Antoinette's confectionery kitchen look like? So I did the hunt for the perfect pink, which I painted and had to repaint because it was looking like Pepto-Bismol. So I ended up working with this moody, almost mauve-y looking pink. And Carlton came in and I wanted it to look trompe l'oeil, cartoony, the inside of the cabinets as if it was glass. So we threw in champagne and popcorn and Rush and cakes, and it's so much fun to work with Carlton because he really can just go for it and is completely so talented. And then up top we have Disco going after a bird, which is her favorite pastime. And here she is now, the darling diva. I knew when you walk into the house, this is the first thing you see. So I really wanted to go bold. I have this giant fern, which I have a lot of plant lady friends that have helped me on my plant journey. I am not a plant lady, and this plant will probably die in the next month. It's pretty now, and it does remind me of my grandma's porch. She always had ferns and hanging baskets. So wish her luck. Over here is my desk area. I really don't cook, okay? So the function of this needed to be expanded more than just the kitchen. I was working from home a lot last year and I was like, I need the most light, and this is the most light in the house. One con to this fabulous rent stabilized affordable house is it doesn't get the most light, but we're embracing it. So this room does get the most, and I just love this like faux burlwood moment from Target. It's supposed to just be an entry console and it works fabulously. This chair is vintage and I got on Cherish. It took 2 months to sit on a truck and come over from Utah. But I needed something super comfortable or else I'm not gonna sit in it, and chic. And especially since this is the first thing that you see when you come in, it really mattered. I mean, everything matters and everything you put in your home should be something you're obsessed with. And this is what I'm obsessed with. I'm just gonna be real with this kitchen. There's not much space. Disco. Okay, girl. You're really making a scene. So I'm gonna be real. The fact that there is no counter space in this really wasn't a problem for me because I don't cook. And to see what's cooking in the oven, I don't know if you could see this, heels a la Carrie Bradshaw. So literally in here is storage. What's great about smaller spaces is that it like forces you to keep just what you need. So this became my little office space. There really isn't a view, another con to this rent stabilized apartment, but that's okay. But I do love that this is my Carrie Bradshaw moment. I couldn't help but wonder out the window. And really the creme de la creme is this Madonna stained glass moment that I had from Stratford Studio on Etsy. I've had this vision because there is no view, but I wanted to emphasize the light coming in. I did not want to cover it up. For some reason, I've had this fantasy of having stained glass of Madonna. And this is the True Blue cover, and it is my mom's favorite album of hers. It's kind of an homage to my mother, and also that blonde ambition that she raised me on. So it's just great that it's like the staple and the main girl in the house. So over here, we have my Nespresso machine. I did not realize that I would be a coffee mug collector. Right now, lately, my favorite mug is I'm a Carrie. Good and bad, I'm a Carrie. Here are donuts that I bought all by myself. I'm pretty proud of that. And I just wanted it to be kind of sweets and treats, a la Let Them Eat Cake. This also is another piece from Anthropologie outlet. that I pulled. This room almost leans like beachy, but I am a beachy kind of girl. So I am a summer boy, July birthday. And also this William Morris Ruggable rug is just so fabulous. So this mirror was another heirloom from my grandparents' house. It was above the mantle, and I literally remember having to jump up and to see myself. And as I grew, I didn't have to jump anymore. So there was a nail already hanging here, but there was a nail hanging up, and I just tried it, and I think it fits perfectly, and it feels like it was the same height as what it was above the mantle. So another little like ornate piece that was probably a garage sale find or, you know, Sears or something find, but I just think it adds a level of the opulence that I love. These chairs I actually took from my high school. They were demoing the space. It was actually my senior year was the last year that they did a film labs, dying art, and I asked my art teacher, can I please take these right before they demoed it all? So I just another element of my story that I've collected and own. Another thing that I didn't realize growing up, but I really started collecting oddities from the start. So my grandpa was a gunsmith and would wake us up before the crack of dawn to go to the flea markets. Usually it was before the people were even set up yet. But he would shop for machinery, and I just started to see these beautiful old things with layered stories of their own. And that's really, I think, what I attribute to the start of where I got my eye for interior design from. So throughout the whole home, I have collections from my travels, from the flea markets. My grandpa in his later years couldn't do machinery anymore, so he was like my personal shopper, and I would just get boxes of goodies. That was so fun to see like what he thought of me from. And I also recently have acquired a lot of heirlooms, you could say, from my grandparents, who really was a huge part of raising me and my upbringing, and that is just so dear to me to have. And my biggest part about people's homes is that, and what I design is that you should honor your past and celebrate that, function for the present, and like tell the fantasy for your future. So what's your fantasy, but also what's your roots, and like let's also make this livable for now. So it's completely a mix of that. I also collect a lot of art. I have my toe in the queer art community in New York, so I collect a lot of queer erotic art. So it's really this fun, crazy mix that I love when people come over, because it's fully just welcome them into my world and my life and my story. And my like true ethos is that every space has a story to be told, and your home needs to express you. So from here we'll go into the hallway, which is, everything goes off of the hallway, which I really loved about the space. And as a maximalist with a lot of art, this is like my moment to shine. And I love the idea of having this kind of be a mood board of my whole life. The whole house is a mood board of my whole life, but I collect so much art and have so many memories and photos that this really became this head-to-toe collage and was kind of the story of me in a hallway. So with a hallway as well, with bathrooms too, you're really only there for a moment. And especially with a hallway, you're literally like spending 5 seconds walking through it. So I think to have something busy really isn't as much of a problem. And what I love too is every time I walk through, your eye kind of catches something different and sparks a memory or emotion. whether enticing or heartfelt. So let's just walk through all this art. God help us all. Big family of pop culture. Katy Perry and Lady Gaga were my girls. Katy really has shown me to not take herself so seriously. And also the camp of it all was really so amazing for my upbringing and to see creating whole worlds and fantasies. So this is my first drawing, my first portrait that I've ever done. Yes, looking back, her earrings look like onion rings and her eyes look like they could kill, but I still love it. And I love for concerts to come up with elaborate costumes. And I had this full peacock made out of real candy that they didn't let me in the concert. It was too big. And I was devastated, and I made sure that somehow she's gonna see this. And we sent it out to all the arenas, and I did everything. And I ended up winning a contest and got on a Greyhound to come to New York City, and I got to meet her at Madison Square Garden, like in her prime teenage dream era. So I brought this, and she signed it for me. Calvin, you're a very talented peacock, which like still holds true. So I do love to have that in the house. And then Carrie Bradshaw's door in front of my door. I get it, overkill, but I just love that fantasy of feeling my Carrie Bradshaw. There is one section in here that is dedicated to family and friends. My friend Phoebe was like, you really need a wall that doesn't have penises and craziness. And I'm like, maybe you're right that my grandpa shouldn't be right next to, you know, a man in their underwear or something. So this is my family and friends kind of shrine almost. And I've collected, there's photos from my grandparents when they were young, my mom when she was young. Just, it truly is kind of my family tree of sorts, and memories of my friends. And this is my grandparents' home, which was home to me, and it really is just sweet to be able to walk by and take that in. I think that's all to be said about that. Well, first I do want to acknowledge also I have a framed piece of my favorite teacher growing up, Mrs. Becker. She really had such a positive outlook, and she really instilled that you don't have control on what happens to you or what happens in the world, but your attitude really dictates it all. And we're still close friends, and I adore her. That was from my last day of my senior year. Then also on People's Way Out, I watched the Homeworthy tour of Grey Gardens, and I loved that she had monogrammed everything and she had her own logo going on. And I thought, wouldn't it be absolutely ridiculous to have my own house name for my little one-bedroom apartment? Wouldn't it also be crazy if it was the longest, we're going for it, let's go for it. So this is the hardest part of the whole home renovation to get right, but I have matchbooks that I made for my house, and it is Disco and Calvin's Estate of Extravagantly Elegant, Exotic and Erotic Garden of Earthly Delights. And I worked with this artist, the Match Muse, on Etsy. My fantasy, a la Charlie's Angels, it's literally a bucket list item, is to dance in a martini glass once in my life. She has me dancing in a Cosmopolitan with a pink Marie Antoinette wig. I always want one little blue rose in honor of my grandma, who loved being in her garden, and I asked her before she passed, what is your favorite flower? And she said a rose. So that's my little touch to her. And we have Disco Stardust, my cat, hanging off the end of the drink. I know that this is so ridiculous, but I love being playful. My grandma's life motto is no fools, no fun, which I will be getting tattooed on me someday. But I think it's needed in the world. I think your home is a playground for that past, present, and future, and you should have fun with it. Like, why not? It's just things, and yes, it's a very emotional process, but you should have fun with it too. This is a Charlie's Angels movie poster. My favorite movie of all time is Charlie's Angels. There's a little rom-com, there's a little action. I love a strong female lead. I was raised by my mother and a lot of strong female characters in my life. So to have the original poster is like an iconic moment for me. What else is going on in the space? Above, I had Colton also paint kind of collages. This is a painting of one of my favorite models. Me and Colton met at a drink and draw, which was a bunch of queer artists meeting at a bar, and it was literally my first week moving here. And he sat next to me and heard that I was from Ohio. He's from Ohio, and we've been friends ever since. So anyways, we know a lot of models, and this is Jerome. So glad that I could look at my favorite model every day. Thank you, Colton. Honestly, this the collage like has some of my own art, some queer artists that I've collected over the years, just cheeky things that I really love. I really just enjoy seeing when friends visit that it takes multiple visits to really get it all in, and I love show and tell. Honestly, my friends have been teasing me for months, knowing that I'm doing this tour because I'm such a long story long person. So this is really my moment to shine. A Lady Gaga portrait that I did in high school. Miami was my dream because I loved kind of exoticism, which exoticism is different for everyone. But what was the opposite of shoveling snow in Cleveland? Miami. So I knew that I wanted to move there. Everyone knew that I wanted to move there. My bedroom in high school was Miami beachy themed and over the top and tacky but fabulous in its own way. So we had a block printing class in high school, and I did Ocean Drive. So although as soon as I landed in Miami for college, it was a nightmare, not a teenage dream. I still have my 305 number. It's the one thing I wanted to keep. It's just, you know, the colorful dream that was, that I really still love to have. And it was a part of me, and it really had me grow up quick. I did an internship in New York, and that was my ticket out, and things have flowed ever since. Then moving forward, there really was only one light in this whole hallway, and this nook was so dark and terrible, and I knew I needed to add another. So this I got on Etsy from a woman in France, shipped it in, wired it up. It's literally a plug-in that I plugged all the way into the bathroom because there's no outlets at all in here. But I love like studying a space and seeing how it can be enhanced. That like thrills me, and this has made all the difference. We will go into the bathroom, which Colton has glamorously painted Shitter. My family is also a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation family, and Shitter's full is a very common phrase that we use. So it also ties into the gritty and glamorous of it all that I love being cheeky with. So in here is the bathroom. My fantasy for this was it just popped in my head. What if it was an orgy of hands going on? And Colton absolutely loved that idea and ran with it. What's funny is there's nothing raunchy about anything that's happening, but I kind of just let him go to town, and it was so fun and seeing how interactive it gets with a light bulb going into the ceiling light. So I kind of went on the hunt for the perfect peachy, nudie tan color, and I really love the moodiness of it. It is the one space that I painted the ceiling as well, and I think it's just fun and it feels fresh and chic. This I got at Crazy Horse in Paris, and it's the most fabulous burlesque show. Please go if you ever go to Paris. From there, we will go into the bedroom. So here is where all the dreams happen, because this is where I sleep. So I really had fun with this space. We'll first talk about the palette. There's this really muddy red that almost reminds me of a brick. My favorite color's red. People were very scared when I told them that I was painting the walls red in my bedroom, but like I said, it all depends on the tone and where you're going, and I feel like it's earthy and plays it all up. So the main centerpiece, the main girl of this space is this rug, which my friends and family all know this story at this point. It is one of my favorite stories. In high school, at about 16, our little public school got to go to Europe in the Spanish club. So our teacher, Mrs. Halko, hey Mrs. Halko, took us there, and it completely rocked my world. My mom has always instilled travel and going and seeing and living in our lives. And also my father passed away young, and it always has, from the start, instilled the reality that we need to go and live. And I think that's been a part of my life and ethos as well, is to just go for it. But I digress. We went to Portugal and Spain, and we had one day in Morocco. And I was so excited for that one day in Morocco. And my mom at the time was able to get free FedEx labels and at her work. And I said, give me a label. I know I'm gonna buy something. And she's like, Calvin, what? And I'm like, I'm gonna be buying something. And I don't know what, but it's gonna be great. And in Morocco, it was not like Casablanca or anything glamorous. It was Tetouan, which I'm probably butchering the name. It was right at the tip around the Rock of Gibraltar. It was just a whole other world, and I loved going through the winding streets. And we went to a rug bazaar, and they did a whole presentation. They were rolling them. I felt like I was so in the zone. It was so in my element. And then they dispersed everyone off and kind of like moved everyone away so people could barter without like asking their friends, should I really do this? They kicked me out because I bartered too low, and I'm like, what? One teacher was like, get back up there and go for it. So I went back up. They were rolling out rugs for me. And I was just like, no. And they rolled this one out, and my eyes were like glowing, and he knew that it was for me. And he was like, antique hand-woven silk, 800 euros, which is a pretty good deal now that I think of it. But I was just like a broke high school kid. You know, I could not afford that. So I'm like, roll it up. I can't even barter with you on that. Like, I do not have the money. And he kept rolling, and I'm like, I'm not into these. I'm just gonna go to another area. Like, don't worry about it. He chases me down, and he's like, how much can you give for this? And I said, like, I think all I had was like 160 euros. And he's like, let me talk to my manager. He goes over, it's the manager that kicked me out. So that was a whole scene. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, was this a whole show on purpose? Like, I don't even know. He pulls me aside and goes, give me the money. And I'm like, what? And I'm shaking, handing him the euros, and he throws it in a plastic bag and gives it to me. And I was like, what just happened? So, of course, a lot of my first designs in college were Moroccan themed. I do love Martin Lawrence Bullard's designs as well. This has been rolled up for over 10 years, not being shown off to anyone. I needed the perfect moment, and getting this apartment, I was like, it is time. So I added rings to it and hang it up, and I just love this as the backdrop for this bedroom. So the rug was the start to the whole idea of this room. I kind of wanted it to be this rug bazaar moment. So I have rugs kind of scattered throughout on the floor, and then we get into the layout of the space. They added this extra closet because there's only one tucked away. And I know it's a little awkward, but that's what I love about design, is kind of Tetris piecing something to make sense of it all. And I was like, do I put the bed this way facing the windows, or do I center it on this cutout? And I also knew I needed more storage. So I decided to center the bed onto this and I'm like pretty proud of this. I put a baker's rack, a closet, storage, my laundry, all behind this with these Anthropologie curtains on a tension rod from Amazon. I don't know how, but I've never had an issue with it. And it fully centers everything to be on there. I had my electrician swag the Anthropologie light to be directly over the bed and centered, and it kind of absolutely works, and I'm pretty happy with it. I will not be showing you what's behind this because it is an absolute mess for you guys right now. I will show you the closet, and that is all I'm showing you. So I do have 3 closets. That's just storage, that's coats and dresses, and then that's the day-to-day clothes that I have. I have really wanted a leather bed for so long, and I love, this is from Article, it is clean lined, chunky, sexy. I think you're either a brown leather person or a black leather person. I'm definitely a brown leather person. I love the casualness of it. I think there's also like a Western part to it all, which I always gravitate towards because it's a little bit Americana, which is my upbringing, and also my grandpa who loved Johnny Cash and that whole world. It's just a little bit of home to me. But anyways, enough about this bed. We have pillows from Simrain again, that Paris company. The bedspread as well, which Disco is modeling for you really gorgeously. And I love linen sheets. This is from Parachute. And there's like a scratchiness to linen that I'm very tactile, which I love about interior design, is the tactileness and touch about it all. And I also had a blanket growing up, like as a baby, that was linen, and it was, I guess, my soothing blanket. So I always love something with a little bit of a hand to it. So then we'll go over to here. Speaking of the added closet that they had, the door is completely centered to the bed. And another fun idea that I had based off of my trip to Europe in high school, this is from the Alhambra in Spain, and it was a Moroccan palace, and I took this photo on a rainy day, and I loved like the ombre effect that it had. I just love the ornamentalism of it all. And so I thought, what if I did a arch painted around the door? And I don't know how I have these things pop up, but in my head, what if I have a mirror reflecting directly on the bed, which I thought was a little cheeky and fun. And I know it's bad feng shui, but it's all in good fun. So I had Carlton paint a wonky little arch. I traced it, and then there's a place called Canal Plastics in the city where I know from my days of visual merchandising that they cut out anything, and this is a bronzed mirror that they cut for me, and I think it is such a fun feature in this room. Over here, I knew it really had to be like a solid moment. This is my favorite photo ever. It's Irving Penn, Women in a Moroccan Palace, and I just think it's so glamorous and chic and emphasizes the exoticism that I gravitate towards. This I got at the Paris Flea Market. The first time I've ever gone was last year, and I believe they said it was from like the 20s or 30s. And it was like an absolutely surreal experience to go there. Highly, highly recommend. This mirror, I know it's high up, but number one, I'm tall. And number two, I really hung it. I love leather work, and I hung it here purposefully to reflect the chandelier and add a little more light going on. Oh my God, another tip, if you have AC units, paint your cords. It makes the world of a difference. I know I'm highlighting such a menial thing, but and get a chic AC, like invest in a little chic AC. This lamp I got in high school, this like retro lamp, and I've had it ever since, and it's such, I just love that I've been collecting. Please start collecting. If you haven't started collecting, start collecting. Pick a color palette that you love and start. One thing too, I hate the color purple. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love purple, but I loathe it. Please do not buy me anything purple. I think the absence of a few colors too really helps make the space all tie in together. And I don't know what else to say about that. Home to me is your soul completely reflected onto tactile things. Home is your emotions, it's your sanctuary, it's your memories and your fantasies. It's all your dreams and thoughts put into the real world. If I had any tip to give anyone is paint. It is so important. I've seen so many spaces where they have really great things and they have their own personal style, but they didn't want to take the time to paint. And even if it isn't as bold as my colorful home, like a nice neutral cream would do wonders. So please to God, it's just paint. It isn't permanent and it's very changeable. Paint the damn house. And then another tip that I have that I really love playing with in my own space, and it's truly just from what I love, but if you pick a key color palette and run with that, I think the world is your oyster, and I think that's really where it starts at. Usually, I know in design school, we picked a piece of art or a rug and pulled colors from that, but I think a lot of people get hung up on what narrative the color story is. For me, it was a Indian block print bandana that I found, and that kind of led way to this like earthy, colorful fantasy that's happening. So that to me is my biggest tip because it's really the starting point for it all.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.